welcome to our fourth interview. And today we are with Jen Taylor. Jen Taylor is a wonderful, wonderful felt maker and artist, visual artist. Her work is just so lyrical. It takes you to place and you sit there and you breathe with the work. It's absolutely gorgeous, and I can't wait for you to see and hear about her work. So, as ever, I shall ask our first question, which is what is the inspiration behind your work?
Thank you, Kate. Most of my recent work has been very much based on landscape, quite dominantly by the local coastline near where I live, mainly because of memories I associate with it rather than the place itself. It's the feeling that places give you. I think the older I get, the less I like cities and things. I'm becoming very much an open space sort of person, and I can feel quite overwhelmed by busy cities, and landscape is my sanity. It's where I find sense and breathing space.
So, when did you first come to the area that you live in now?
I've come to Cumbria my entire life. My granddad passed away before I was born, and my gran remarried a chap from Workington who was my grandpa all my life. So I've been coming, she married him 2 years before I was born, so I've been coming to Workington my entire life.
Right.
So we moved there after I had my first child. I wanted to be near our family, and my mum and dad were by that point in Workington, as was my sister. So we moved up to sort of be near our family so that the children had family around them as they were growing up. So I was actually about 8 months pregnant with my second on moving day. So that was fun.
Absolutely. So a lot of memories tied into
massive associations. The coastline is about 5 minutes walk from the house that my grandparents lived in. So as a child we would come, and my gran would pack us a picnic and we would go down to the shore and sort of spend summer holidays on the shore, and then when my grandpa finished work he would pick us up and drive us back home because it was uphill on the way home. My gran didn't like it. So
that's idyllic.
Yeah.
But I share that because my mum's parents, my nan and grandpa, lived in St Anne's.
Right.
So my childhood memories are of spending time with my nan and grandpa and going to the beach.
Yeah.
So I really relate to that. The beach is such a special place, isn't it?
It just gives me peace. I just like standing there watching the sea. It's just, I need that.
I think we all need it.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why the workers were all bussed to the coast when they had their week off from the mill, and and they went and stared at the sea.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know if it's part of living on an island, that sort of island mentality, but I would never want to live too far away from a coastline. I'd like to visit it on a regular basis.
I concur, completely concur. And you have these amazing collages here.
So collage was never really my thing, to be honest with you, and then sort of I started working more with it as a way of developing my ideas, and it's something I've done as part of the design course at Artibird. Collage has become far more important for me, and I just find it's got such flexibility because you can literally sort of put something in place and say, no, it doesn't look right, and swap it out for something else. In addition, you can create papers with such freedom because they don't need to be anything when you're creating them. And then you've got these beautiful marks that you can be quite selective about how you choose them. This one came about, I was actually doing some jelly plate printing with some students and just loved the marks that I was getting and thought, oh, those have to go into the collage. So
Definitely.
sort of everything that you do feeds into it. And then I've got the opportunity to add the stitch and things, which I really enjoy doing. I like the sort of free motion embroidery.
And you collage a lot with watercolor paper. Rather than just going cheap paper, you go a good quality paper because it does have that sense of textile about it. And it's a very
It's
easy leap into your felt, isn't it?
it's very much the quality of the mark that you get on watercolor paper that leads me to sticking with it. Like some of the techniques, I like using ink and bleach, and some of the techniques don't give you the same mark when you do it on cheap paper. It just doesn't work the same. So to get the quality of the mark I want, I have to use decent paper, which then gives you, as you say, the texture, which then helps to lead into the felt. And it's also become, through getting sort of quite involved with the collage, it's become almost the way that I felt as well.
Yes.
Because I make a lot of wool papers and half felts and cut them up, and my felting technique has very much come from the paper collaging technique that's fed through into it.
Yeah. And your collages stand alone, don't they? And these are all got little window mounts around them to complete them. And your paperwork stands alone as well as alongside of your felt making. It's not tucked away and hidden. And you sell these to the public, and they are just gorgeous.
Well, thank you. I do see everything as being part of the whole thing. I don't sort of differentiate as my felt work being my only art. It's not. Everything is part of it.
Yeah, beautiful. Question number 2 for you, Jen, is how do you go about developing your techniques?
I think a lot of what I do to develop techniques probably comes from the background in education. As a teacher, you're always looking to stimulate thoughts and ideas and encourage people to sort of look beyond the obvious. And for better or worse, I think that's become a bit of an addiction with me. So very often when I'm doing something, I look at it and think, oh, what if I did that? Or I haven't tried that, or I could do that. And that essentially leads to you discovering new things all the time.
Yeah, and that's exciting, isn't it?
Oh yeah,
and stimulating. And yeah, you can be going down another rabbit hole, but you can also pull back from that and just see how you can extend what you do as opposed to completely change what you do.
Indeed, yeah. And I think sort of some of it, you say you can disappear down rabbit holes, so sometimes you do have to sort of contain yourself quite a lot and go, right, okay, I've got those things that I can do, but right at the moment I've got to finish what I'm doing before I move on to that.
Yeah. I know if I do a workshop with somebody and I come back all fired up, or I read a book or I find something, I sort of go, right, what 3 things can I take into my work as opposed to, and I'm going to do it all.
The bit is, though, that you sort of end up keeping a record of all these things and thinking, I'm going to go back to that at some point.
Oh,
so
definitely.
I think I've got enough work to last me until I'm about 147.
Well, you'll be here at 147, so that's okay. That's okay. Yeah. But it's stimulating, it's exciting, but it's also overwhelming to have all of these thoughts and ideas going on. But you pull them into creating really beautiful work, and you've got this series that we're going to be able to see in the exhibition, and they're your rock pool series, aren't they?
They are, and these are quite a fun way of exploring lots of different things for me. So again, based on the local coastline. The thing I like about the rock pools are that I've got sort of fabrics laminated into them. Some of the fabrics are stitched before I laminate them in. Some of them are stitched after I've laminated them in. I've included cords in it. At one point I was learning to spin, and my spinning was a bit dubious, but it made me think of sort of seaweed and things, so the sort of irregularity in the spinning became a pleasure. And I actually caught the yarns within the centre of the cords so that they sort of extended the line in a different way. I've got stitching going on both free motion embroidery and some hand stitching. So it's just exploring how you can get more depth into things by layering up all these effects.
And you're definitely looking down into something there. It's beautiful, and with those, like you say, the seaweed over the top of the rocks and the water, they're absolutely exquisite. And I love the fact that you've broken out of the square and the rectangle.
Well, rock pools aren't squares. So why not? Also, you'll notice when you see these in reality that often things are sort of coming off the edge and sort of dangling off, because I think that's part of it. But I love the depth you can get by using all these different techniques. So quite often there might well be shells like this that I've ended up burying underneath something else, but you can see little bits of it coming through, and it's that adds to it. So I probably make twice as many as you actually see in the finished thing, because half of them disappear in a layer somewhere.
But then you get these beautiful, beautiful, like you say, subtle contrasts that just keep you looking and looking and looking and giving you that wonderful variety.
And I mean, this one's been stitched before felting, and then felted and then stitched again after felting, and it's sort of, it gives you that layering of effect. Yeah. That's what I like.
I love this edge here. That's just fabric trapped under and revealed.
And it's also about learning sort of what all the different fibres will do. So I think this is Rami, if I remember rightly. Like there's lots of different fibres that I've sort of made lots of little samples of to see how they play off against the different fibres underneath. And I use a lot of berg shaft because my local coastline is quite rugged. It's not a pretty beach. It's stones and sort of quite industrial almost. So I like the berg shaft because of the sort of hairiness, and it kind of tones all the colour down. And although I will add sort of merino on top to give me different colours and so on, it gets knocked back a bit by the presence of the berg shaft.
Yeah. And I think this is something that we're seeing over and over again, is people, you're specialising in your fibres, so you get to know the fibres that give you your language.
Yeah. And I think it is about knowing what works for you. I mean, like, if you were doing sort of really raw, brightly coloured things, it wouldn't be the fibre to go for. No. So it is about what's going to give you the effects that you want at the end of the day.
But you're also able to create these wonderful fine felts using it, because these are actually really quite fine for you.
They are for me.
But you also use it to create very thick, almost rug thickness felts. So it's really versatile fibre for you, isn't it?
It works beautifully for me. I've sort of become quite addicted to it over the years. I use it more than anything else. But I've also sort of, a lot of the fabrics that are trapped in here, I've done some silk painting on them so that you've got the colours coming from the fabrics as well, which again gives you a different effect than if you've got the colour coming from the fibre. And also using resists to give you little sort of bits that you can see through. And it's this subtle stuff that I like, where you can just see something underneath.
Yeah. They're absolutely exquisite. And yes, you do want to come in and touch them. I'm getting away with it now. You won't in the exhibition, I'm sorry. But if you buy one, then you could take it home and play with it to your heart's content. And question number 3 for you, Jen, is what is most important about your work for you?
I think for me, the most important thing about the work is just doing it. I have to do it. It's something I've done all my life. As a child, I drew all the time. All my life I've gone through, even when my children were very young, and I was a mum of 4 very small children at one point, I still, when they went to bed at night, would paint for a while. And I've equated it to eating, in that I don't have to do it all the time, but if I don't do it for a bit, I get to the point where I've really got to do it
Yeah,
with some urgency.
Yeah. And I can really relate to that. I think as a creative, fellow creative, you die if you don't create. It's essential.
It becomes a sort of a need inside you that it's like, oh, I've not done anything this week. I need to make something, and it sort of all my life I've crafted in one form. If I haven't been painting or drawing, I've been crocheting blankets or whatever it might be. I have always made my entire life.
Yeah, and there's something soothing about it as well, isn't there? That almost physicality, the rocking motion of stitching or crocheting that can rock us to sleep. I know if I don't do something in an evening, I struggle to go to sleep, even if I can't be doing my absolutely absorbing work, because it's the evening. I need to do something in front of the telly and have my fingers doing.
I do tend to have something at the side of the chair that I can pick up all the time. It's sort of, and the strange thing is that I find that the instant I pick something up, I can remember exactly what I was doing the night before or what was on TV the night before when I picked it up. There must be some sort of learning connection, memory thing going on there. I don't know what it is, but
and I wonder how many people will relate to that and absolutely understand that the way their brain is wired is to be working with their hands and being creative. But you're terribly organised as well, in that you block your time out so that you have your working time, because sometimes it can be really hard to, particularly when you work from home, to sort of not think, oh, I've just put that washing on, I'll just do that. Whereas you're really good at blocking out your time, going, right, from this time to this time is my creative time.
I think you have to be quite disciplined with it. I mean, essentially at the moment, because I'm working from home, you have to treat it as a job, or you don't find the time to do the things that you need to do. So although essentially I'm creating all day from sort of dawn till dusk, basically, there are sort of specific jobs that have to be done. So you have to be conscious of them and make sure that you're covering what needs done.
Absolutely, and we're going to talk about the business that you run later on, but you have your personal work and you have the work that you do to sell.
Yeah.
And the fellowship's been where you're being creative for your personal work.
Very much
and you've
so,
got a few panels here to show us of a big mosaic installation of memories at the coast.
Yes, yeah. These are part of my main piece that's going to be in the exhibition. So, I suppose you could think of this as a few little jigsaw pieces that are going to come together to make a larger image finally. But you can see from this, you spoke about the previous berg shafts being quite light for me. You can see sort of how thick these are.
Yeah.
And this, I quite often work with this sort of weight of fibre for large wall installations, because I feel it gives them the presence that they need on that scale. And these are little bits of the coastline, which again, I'm using my stitching before felting. I'm using stitching during felting and after felting. I'm using different fibres and silks here, and these all come together. The reason for sectioning it is very much because I think that memories come in little pieces.
Yes.
So if you go a walk along the coastline, you might remember the bits of seaweed you saw in the rocks. You might remember the waves and how they behaved. You might remember the windmills that you could see in the distance of the wind turbines, which I love the wind turbines. I know they're not a popular choice, but I'm quite a fan of them.
They're quite sculptural and monumental. And, I was brought up in West Yorkshire, and we had the cooling towers. And for me, they were part of the landscape, and particularly driving underneath them, they were so huge. And I thought they were gorgeous. So I absolutely understand that.
They're very much part of my local coastline, so it's there's a sort of elegance in them, and like when they spin as well, it's quite a sort of gentle, elegant movement, and so I quite like the wind turbines. But this wall hanging is very much about my memory of my local coastline, so it's the sort of the fragments that come to me when I think about it, as opposed to, although it creates one big picture, that picture comes to me in parts, which is the reason for it being sectioned. So
yeah, it's very, very exciting to watch you create this piece, which you've been doing over the year. And what I was very interested in was how, and you might disagree with this, but how easily it appeared to come together in that you know your processes so well. You've got your half felts made, your wallpapers made, you've got everything there that you can just cut up and work with and build and focus on the memory, the image you want to create, and not be worrying about will the materials work in this way. You absolutely know your techniques inside out. And
I think I'm slightly blasé about some of the techniques in that I just expect them to work, and 9 times out of 10 they do.
yeah,
But I don't worry too much about that, because at the end of the day, if it doesn't work, I can make that bit again, or I can try something else, or it's back to that what if. If I don't try it, I'm not going to know if it will work. So you just give it a go and hope for the best. And there's been odd little bits that have gone a bit skew, but generally speaking, given the experience that I've gained over my years of being at Artibird, I have enough knowledge to expect something to work and be right 90%, 95% of the time.
Absolutely.
So
yeah. And I think one of the things I'd like to talk about at this juncture, I think, is your use of the gentle roller, because you use that all the time at the side of your work, don't you? So
I
that
do, yeah.
Can you tell people about it? Because there may be people at home who don't know about it, or don't think that it would be relevant for them. But actually, it's a really useful tool.
It's a really useful tool in the sense that it takes away that time that you have to stand there rolling the felt. For me, especially since I've started my business, it's something that I can make good use of. It doesn't speed the process up particularly. I think at first when I came to Artibird and saw the gentle roller, I was quite nervous of it and not particularly inspired to use it. And then I tried it out and discovered what it could add to my work. So I can decide on a piece that I want to make. I can lay it out, I can net, wet and set, roll it a little bit, get things fairly solid, and then pop it in the gentle roller. So then I can go and do some painting or some planning or a bit of paperwork, whatever I might need done, and check it, take it out the gentle roller, turn it, put it back in, carry on with some design work, maybe prepare a few other things. And it just stops you having to stand there rolling back and forward for hours on end.
Yeah.
And given the weight of the pieces that I make, and given the scale of the pieces that I make, it saves you all that physicality, but it also saves you hours and time that can be used elsewhere. So it doesn't answer the questions in as much as when you take your felt out, you have to feel it and decide if it's felted enough, and you have to check if things are on properly, and you have to know how to felt manually before you use a gentle roller. But with that knowledge, the gentle roller just gives you back hours to use in other ways.
Yeah, and this is you working smart. I'm in awe of the way you organise your time and your space in the studio, because you have your gentle roller, you have your space where you can move it in and out of it, and you also have other space, dry space, where you can be working on other projects as well. So you're
It
terribly
sounds
well.
like I've got a massive, beautiful studio. I've got a conservatory that's got some benches built around the side. But I'm fortunate in that the benches have been built to accommodate what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got my sort of basic work table that I use most of the time. I've got another space that I tend to cut things out on. I've got another space where I can unroll my felts and then my gentle rollers at the end of all that. So it does work.
It works incredibly well, and as you say, for a small space, incredibly well planned and designed so that you can be doing what you want to be able to
Many
do.
thanks to the other half for his help in that.
Absolutely. Where would we be without our other halves?
Indeed.
Question number 4 is, what are the benefits of collaborative creativity?
If you had asked me that question 2 years ago, I would have given you a very different answer. I think I was always slightly terrified of collaborative work. I think I don't particularly like confrontation. I don't like arguing with people, and people are often quite strong in their opinions of what should happen in a piece of work. And I was always quite intimidated by collaboration. But working with my fellowship friends, which is very much who they are now, we've developed such a strong friendship. It's become a joyous process, and very much more so now that I am working for myself as well, because being an artist at all can be quite lonely. You're quite isolated, and I want to say you're making big decisions all the time, and maybe they're not big to everybody else, but they are to you when you're trying to do a piece of work and trying to decide whether it'll work or not, or trying to come up with a new product for the business, whatever it might be. If you're doing that in complete isolation, it's really hard.
It really is. And I mean, that just yesterday, for instance, we're all moving towards completing the pieces for the exhibition, and we're hanging them and looking at them and things. And you are just amazing at, so generous with the way that you support other people in making those decisions that you're talking about that we'd have to do at home on our own. And
I want to say what you mean is I'm not really good at keeping my mouth shut.
well, yeah, I mean, we joke about that.
Yeah,
but
I do have ideas and things, and it's that sharing of ideas that just makes collaboration such a pleasure.
It really does. But what's special about you is your what if.
Yeah.
That's what you bring. What if we don't hang them in a straight line? What if we don't spread things out evenly, we group them? What if? And you bring that to those questions when people are looking at their own work and sort of going, that final bit of, is it finished? I'm not quite satisfied with it, but I don't know why. And you'll just come in and go, what if? And
I think in some ways that comes from, it was a conversation I had just this morning about, as a teacher, the joy of education was when kids went, well, why can we not just do, and nobody's ever asked me that, and I think that's what I've taken away from being a teacher, is like, well, why is that right? Why do things have to be in a straight line? Why do things have to be done that way? Why can't we just do this instead? And it's almost that little rebellious point sort of somewhere.
Yeah, and it just moves everybody's work forward that little bit more and makes it a little bit special. And I know with this project that we've got in front of us here, which was the first session of the fellowship,
it was,
and you were faced with this huge cloth. You're seeing part of it, but it's kind of 5 meters long and taller than me wide, and it was blank, and you all came in and worked together on it, and it was a group gelling exercise more than anything.
It very much was, and I mean, it did jealous a lot as a group, and I felt sort of stronger bonds. And the reason I chose this when we were talking about sort of collaborative work is that it was one of the first times that I felt free enough to go, well, what if we do this? Or why can't we do that? We had made our own mark making tools and brought them in, and we were all using each other's tools and sort of printing all over the fabric. And again, part of being with this group of fellowship students is that there was no preciousness. Everybody shared the whole thing. We wandered round the table and nicked each other's tools and played with different things. And at one point, when we were starting printing on this, I said, well, what if we create some big folds in it to start with, and you can sort of see the residue of where those folds were made there when the colour was taken across two sections. And that really worked for this. But it was the first time that I felt comfortable to go, well, let's do it to the whole group, which I'd always struggled with collaboration prior to that. So this represents a big breakthrough for me personally.
Yeah. Whereas I saw that as you being very confident, you know, you led the way, let's put folds in it, let's do this. And, you know, it's so and it was such a gift because I was questioning in my own work how to create movement of the wind going through the reeds at the reed bed. And I thought, oh, if I put folds in the paper and draw across them, I can get those glimpses that I have of the movement and then the stillness and things like that. So you gave that to me, and that is part of it.
But that's the beauty of the collaboration, is that you take things from other people, and also as part of the joy of any gift is the giving of it, isn't it? Yes. So it's like when you make a suggestion and somebody runs with it, there's a deep pleasure in that as well.
Absolutely. And you know, and I know as a teacher, you know, I think we have in common that if we were cut through like a stick of rock, we would have educator and creative stamped through us as our core. And you know, it was such a joy as a teacher to watch you all work like this. And I have done this before with other people, and they've zoned their work and kept to their own section and things. So